Okay, so we left off with this great concept of the Jews being a transformational force in civilizing the world. So for presentation number 2, we're going to deal with the concept of anti-Semitism, which is something that's been very much in demand since October 7th. What is going on with this Jew hatred, which is at levels we have not seen since the Holocaust. Jews in America are now the victims of close to 60% of all religious-based hate crime in America, which has gone up 360% since October 7th. So anti-Semitism is not going away. And one of the things we appreciate about it is it's a universal phenomenon. There's a Harvard math professor who just died a few months ago, close to 100 years old. He moved out to California. His name was Tom Lear. He used to write these really funny songs about the situation in the world. He had a song called National Brotherhood Week. And he had a verse that went like this.
All the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and the Hindus hate the Muslims, and everybody hates the Jews, but you're...
So he's Jewish, by the way. Everyone in the audience is Jewish. Everyone's laughing, but it's not funny. And the question is why? And the why is not just a nice philosophical, historical question. Like I said, it's very practical anti-Semitism at levels we've not seen since the Holocaust. And we want to make sure we don't have to go through anything like what our fellow Jews went through between 1939 and 1945. So if you ask the experts why there's anti-Semitism in the world, they'll generally give you one of the following 7 explanations. Number 1 is economics. Jews have too much money and power. Again, coming in late, make sure you can see the screen. We're down to one screen here. Number 2 is chosen people. Those Jews think they're better than everyone else. No one likes an elitist. Number 3 is scapegoat. You know, we're always at the right place at the wrong time. Blame the Jews for your problem. Number 4 is Zionism. This is the one that is most prevalent today. It's Israel's apartheid-like treatment of the Palestinians as the foreign genocidal colonialist occupier of the indigenous Palestinian population. Number 5 is outsiders. We're different. 5th column. Jews are never really loyal. You can't really trust them. Number 6 is deicide, the Christian accusation that we're God killers, Christ killer. And last but not least, the one used by Hitler, Yamach Shemo, that we're a different and inferior race. You guys seen these before? Pretty much any supposed explanation for why we're hated is going to fall into these. What we need to do, guys, is we need to distinguish between what are causes versus what's an excuse. What's the truth versus what's just a smokescreen? Let's define our terms. What's a cause versus an excuse? You guys know the cartoon Calvin and Hobbes?
Yeah.
Have you seen this one? Like, why didn't Calvin do his homework? Calvin's this little 7-year-old who's always getting in trouble. Here he's explaining to the principal, and if you can see the cartoon, he's making up all these stories about aliens, bullies, and dinosaurs. And clearly you can see that the principal has dealt with Calvin before. He does not look convinced. If we get rid of all his excuses, will his homework have gotten done?
No.
No, because what's the real cause? There it is. Look how old this cartoon is. This is PPP, the pre-plasma period. So, guys, we got to appreciate millions of people believe things about us that are not true, but we can't stop doing something that we never did in the first place. So we're going to go through all these 7 explanations. We're going to quickly look at them through the lens of history and fact. We're going to get rid of all the ones that are not true. Guys, 45 minutes from now, you will understand, all excuses aside, what is really driving anti-Semitism and therefore what we really need to do. The only thing we can do to end it. This is one of the most important presentations I think every Jew and really everyone in the world should basically be seeing. So number 1, economic theory. We hate those Jews because they have too much money, too much power. Where's the connection of Jews and money first begin? Anyone know?
Banks.
Europe when?
Middle Ages.
Right, medieval Europe when Jews were forced into money lending. They didn't want to lend money. By the way, these are images, Renaissance period images. Notice the sign for Jews up until only a few hundred recently was not a Star of David. It was a circle, which was a coin sign. Look at the guy on the left there. Who's that dude? Look at those feet. Who is he? He's the devil. The Jew is portrayed in European art as the devil is Jewish. Same thing. Jew and devil, same thing. Evil, 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 evil. Jews with money, that kind of thing. Jews were forced into money lending. Most Jews didn't lend money. By the way, but by the way, the Italian bankers in the Renaissance started ignoring the Catholic Church and started lending money themselves at much higher interest rates. No one went after them. But the real association of Jews and money and power is much more recent. It comes with the publication of the world's most famous forgery, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Anyone heard of this book?
Yep.
It was written by this secret right-wing pro-czarist society in the beginning of the 20th century called the Black 100s. It's supposedly the minutes of a meeting that takes place once every 100 years when the rabbis get together with Jewish political leaders to decide how to control the world for the next 100 years. Now, how do we know it's a forgery besides we know it's a forgery? Anyone who thinks that 10 Jews in a room could agree on anything knows nothing about the Jewish people. But do you know, besides the Bible and maybe the Quran, there are more versions of this book in print than any other book on the planet Earth. It's even a bestseller in countries that have no Jews like Japan. Not because they're anti-Semitic. I have a friend who grew up in Japan. He said the Japanese aren't anti-Semitic. They just believe it's true and they want to know the Jews are doing it so they can copy it. But how do we know it's not true? A month before the start of World War II, they made a movie out of this called The Voyage of the Damned. Hitler took a ship called the St. Louis. He put 1,000 Jews on it, and he said, go find a port of refuge. Go off to the Western Hemisphere. Go to America. Now, let's say it's a boat full of billionaire people who control the world. How hard would it be for them to find a place to go to? Not hard at all. Anyone know what happened to the ship, by the way? It circled around the Atlantic for weeks, had to go back to Europe because no one took any of the Jews, and half of them died in the Holocaust. But more than that, today in America, Jews are the highest income earning bracket, even though we're a small percentage of the population. But if you look at the victims of the Holocaust, how many of them were wealthy, powerful Jews? Very, very few. Guys, my friends, you hear this all the time. You're going to hear this. They're jealous of us. Trust me, when Jews lived in medieval Europe, had no money, no power, dirt poor, treated like garbage, they were hated just as much, if not more, than Jews who were wealthy and powerful. It's a smokescreen. Let's get rid of that one. By the way, more than that, in 1935, Hitler passed the Nuremberg Laws. You ever heard of the Nuremberg Laws? Nuremberg laws rob the Jews of all their rights. You're no longer a citizen. You can't vote. Okay, you're thrown out of school. You lose your job if you're a public employee. You're thrown out of universities. If the threat that Jews pose is somehow political or economic, and that's all neutralized by regular laws in 1935, and the Jews are now powerless in Germany, then how come you have to go kill them? Clearly in Hitler's mind, and we'll see this in a couple of minutes, the threat that Jews pose has nothing to do with money or power, something much deeper. So let's get rid of that one. People may believe it, but it is not the cause of... Oh no. Sorry. Take that call. Number 2, chosen people. Okay? Now it's true, by the way, that Jews, we don't view ourselves as better than anyone else. We do view ourselves, as we saw in the last presentation, as chosen for unique responsibility. Maybe that would engender a certain level of hostility. You know, these Jews, who do they think they are? Oh, I just lost my presentation completely because that call came in and took it away from me.
You have to click on the...
Yeah, hold on, let me try and find it. Hopefully it's back again. There it is. Okay, we got chosen. There we go. But then along comes the Reform movement, which I was raised Reform. The Reform movement starts in Hamburg, Germany at the beginning of the 19th century. And the whole essence of the Reform movement was, we are not chosen or special. We are Germans of the Mosaic persuasion. There are Protestant Germans, there are Catholic Germans, there are Jewish Germans. We're all Germans. We're not going back to Israel. We're not special. Germany is our Israel. Berlin, Hamburg, Frankfurt, that is our Jerusalem. So a bunch of Jews hear us saying, we're not chosen, we're not special, we're not different, we're Germans. Does anything change? No. It's even worse. Interesting. But not only that, guys, everyone thinks they're chosen or special. Think about it. The red sun is in the flag of Japan because they believe they're closest to the gods, the land of the rising sun. The word for China in Chinese means center of the universe, by the way. And traditionally, the word for non-Chinese is monkey or barbarian. Not very politically correct. Christianity and Islam, in their inception, both preach what's called supersessionism or replacement theology. God chose the Jews, then he rejected them and chose us instead. Think about it, guys. Every nation, every religion thinks they're chosen or special. And only we're hated for supposedly being chosen or special. Even when we say we're not chosen or special, the hatred doesn't go away. It's like you go to a doctor, God forbid you have a disease, he diagnoses you, he gives you medication. You come back 2 weeks later and you're just as sick. What's the doctor done?
No.
Misdiagnosed you. It's not the cause. Another excuse. Okay, how about scapegoat? Where does scapegoat come from, guys? Where does it come from?
Pesach.
Or Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, when the high priest on the Temple Mount, we should see it soon, next Yom Kippur, confesses the sins of the Jewish people on a goat, which is sent to Mali Adamim, Mount that way and off a cliff. The goat didn't do anything wrong. It's an idiom. When you scapegoat someone, what are you doing? What does it mean to scapegoat someone?
You put the blame on them?
Blame someone who is blameless. Why do you do that?
Take it off.
It's like bait and switch. Distract from who really is guilty. This one is true. We are always scapegoated, but scapegoating is always an excuse. You guys get this? It's blaming someone who's blameless. Why do that? So the guy who's really responsible can avoid responsibility. You know, like Tsarist Russia is a corrupt feudal, oligarchy. Blame the Jews. They're their fault. But not only that, when you blame someone, here's Hitler speaking at a rally in 1935, and he really knew how to get the crowd going. By the way, if you look at the banner at the top, it says over there, if you can read German, it says the Jews are our misfortune. This is the byline of the Nazi newspaper, Der Stürmer. Every issue of the newspaper came out every morning. Der Stürmer, the Jews are our misfortune. But what's the reaction to the crowd as Hitler's talking about how dangerous the Jew is for Germany and the world? How are they reacting?
Here.
They're cheering. Yeah, after the rally, we go to the Brauhaus, drink some beer, and beat up Juden. Imagine he stands up there and says, my fellow citizens of the Reich, we must fight against the enemy of the fatherland, the midgets. The midgets are our misfortune. Now what's the crowd thinking? Adolf is barking mad. He needs like a uniform with sleeves that tie behind the back in an office with padded walls and no door handle. Why, when they hear about midgets, they think he's nuts, but the Jews make a lot of sense. What percentage of Germany is Jewish before the Holocaust? What percentage of Germany is Jewish before the Holocaust? Sorry?
25.
25%, 27%. 0.6%. It's a third of what it is in America. But we did own 70% of the retail and the department stores. They say, why did God create Gentiles? Someone had to buy retail. No, seriously. The point is, my friends, when you're scapegoating someone, you just don't pick someone out of a hat. Ideally, you want to pick someone that people already love to hate. And what's Hitler building on, Yamach Shemo? He's building on the deepest, oldest, most superstitious Christian anti-Semitism, specifically the most damning accusation. Earliest is deicide. What does deicide mean? Dia is God, Deo in Latin, side is like insecticide, to kill. God killers. Christ killer, my personal favorite. Why? Because my great-grandmother, very smart lady, over 120 years ago, bought 3 buildings in Brooklyn. Isn't that smart? And my mother and her sister still have one of the buildings on Park Slope. Anyone from Brooklyn here? Only 1, 2. Oh, a room full of Jews, only 3 from Brooklyn. Shocking. Anyway, when we were little, because my father was a struggling surgical resident, making $50 a month. We lived in the ground floor of one of my grandmother's apartments for free, basically a very cheap rent. And the whole neighborhood was 100% white. No black person ever dared walk on the block. They would have killed him. And 100%, except for us, Irish and Italian Catholic. Every other kid on the block went to St. Saviour's. And we used to play, my brother and I, my older brother's only 16 months older than I, we used to play at this guy Joseph Viglia's house, Italian Catholic kid. And we used to play like shooting games on the couch. He's on one side, we're shooting back. Boop, beep, beep, beep. I remember his mother walks in. I think I'm 5 years old, maybe 6. Mother walks in and says, Joseph, send the Christ killers home. It's time for dinner. And I remember it was Joseph Viglia's 8-year-old birthday, and everyone on the block got invited to the party except my brother and I. And my older brother goes, let's go see why we're not invited. I'm like, I don't want to see why we're not invited. And he drags me down the street. I'm so scared. He goes up on the first floor, 1 floor up. I'm standing on the stairs with my eyes at the level of the floor looking at the door. My brother goes to the door. You hear all the kids screaming inside. He knocks on the door, gets really quiet. And they open up the door a crack, and there's Joseph Viglia, and then you get all the kids standing there, and his parents in back. And my brother's like, why didn't you invite us to the party? And he goes, oh, sorry, we ran out of invitations. My brother's a smart guy, he's a doctor. Thank God one of us is. And my brother's like, come on, really? So he throws the door open. What's opposite the entrance to the door is that. He goes, you killed my God! And he slams the door in my brother's face, and I go running home and hide under my bed because I'm afraid they're going to come kill me. But this is the craziest stuff. The Christ killer stuff is ridiculous. Like, when is Yoshki born and when does he die? We're not even sure he even existed. I have a whole class on that. But from the year 1 to the year 32. So when should Christians be most angry at Jews if we killed him? Well, in the year 32, there is no Christianity. But in the year 323, going fast forward 3 centuries, when it becomes the official religion of the Roman Empire, what should have been the first item of business? Let's get those Jews for killing our Lord. Pick American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, North and South. Who won? Southerners think the South's going to do it again, but the North wins. When do you think the South is most angry at the North, 1866 or 2025? 1866. Imagine you land in Florida this winter, that's what it says. Time dulls all pain. When does the accusation of Christ killer first come out and used to unleash massive violence against Jews? 1,000 years after the event at the time of the First Crusade. Crazy stuff. But not only that, if you read in the first 4 books of the Christian Bible called the Gospel, the first 3 are the accounts of Yoshki's life. Who's responsible for arresting him, trying him, flogging him, and crucifying him? The Romans, the Romans, the Romans. Okay, according to the Gospel in Matthew, some Jews were involved in the plot. Okay, let's split the blame 50-50. We get all the blame, and they get the church named after them, the Roman Catholic Church. That's like crazy stuff. By the way, according to Christianity, you're born in sin, you die in sin. There's no idea of kapara and tshuva. What's the only thing that saves you from eating the barbecue? Believing that he died for your sins. So if we didn't kill him, what would be happening? Everyone would be burning. They should thank us. We didn't do it though. The whole thing is so crazy illogical, but it gets worse and worse and worse. What's unique about kosher meat? Besides what kind of animal you can eat and you have to shecht it, you cannot consume any blood. So what are Jews accused of starting in 1144 in Norwich, England? You can see the images right here of kidnapping a Christian child, ritually slaughtering him. You can see there's a great image right. Look at the one coming up now. Notice here's the Jews with their funny hats they're forced to wear with the red, the circles, the coin signs, the poor Christian kid, the blood's being drained into a bowl. Now, why do, according to medieval Christian thought, why do Jews need Christian babies' blood? Don't answer yet. It's a multiple choice question, which in Israel is called an American test. Mivchan Amerikai. A, it's the chief ingredient in matzah. B, all Jewish men menstruate and need a monthly blood transfusion. They get it from Christian babies' blood. C, all Jews as a punishment for killing Jesus suffer from hemorrhoids. The only known cure for hemorrhoids in medieval Europe before preparation H is Christian baby's blood. D, all Jewish boys when they're circumcised lose so much blood they have to drink Christian baby's blood to replenish the loss. What's the correct answer? All of the above and about 10 more that are ridiculous too. And none of them have anything to do with reality, and all of them are what's called projection in psychology. What's projection? Yes, you have a magnifying glass for your fault in someone else. Because what's the central ritual in a Catholic church that you guys never go to, so you have no idea what I'm talking about? The priest changes the wine and the wafer into the body and blood of Yoshki. It's called transubstantiation of the Eucharist. In the 13th century, the Catholic Church said this is not symbolic, it's real. When you drink that wine, you're drinking his blood. When you eat that cracker, you're eating his body. So what are Jews accused of? Starting in the 13th century in Baelitz in Switzerland. You can see the graphic novel version. Okay? They break into a church. They're the crackers. See the Jews with the Jewish symbols. They steal them, bring them back to the synagogue with the fake Hebrew. They're stabbing the crackers, which are screaming and blood is pouring out of it. They divide them up to torture the crackers again to reenact the death of Yoshki. But thank God the Jews are caught and the leaders are beheaded. The Jews are all tortured and burned alive, and in the end the synagogue is now a church. All the Jews are dead and the crackers are back in. We hate the Jews because they torture crackers. You would laugh at that, except the entire Jewish community of Baelitz, Switzerland, were all burned alive in a giant house especially created for that because they tortured a Jew until he admitted we stole the cracker. What's the most non-kosher animal you could think of?
Pig.
The pig. What's the animal in German art always associated with Jews? The pig. It's called Judensau, which means female big pig, basically. You can see these. This is Martin Luther. That's his church. Protestant founder. This is on the bridge, no longer there, on the bridge outside the Judengasse, which is the ghetto in Frankfurt where the Rothschilds were. This means thousands of Christians are seeing this every day. Look at this one. Notice everyone is wearing the Jewish sign, including, who's the guy on the right with the horns? The devil. These are all called rabbis. Notice that big fat female pig. Look below. One guy is suckling from the pig, drinking the pig's milk, and the other one, the pig is defecating into his mouth and he's eating it.
Oh.
When Adolf Hitler stands up a couple hundred years later and says the Jew is subhuman evil, and you've been looking at this kind of stuff, boy, but none of this has anything to do with reality. How about Jews are outsiders? The main reason one group of people doesn't like another group of people is because they are different. Like, I'm white, you're black, and we Jews generally chose to look, dress, and live, eat differently than non-Jews, and those differences could engender a certain level of hostility. But then it comes the great emancipator of Jews in Europe, the person who broke down the walls of the ghettos. Who's the number one emancipator of Jews in Europe? I'll give you a hint. Corsican artillery officer who always is painted with his army. Yes, Napoleon Bonaparte. Jews were given, by the way, Jews in France were given civil rights for the first time, citizenship for the first time before Napoleon in 1789 after the revolution. Napoleon has to think, now that I'm emperor, will I recognize the rights and make them citizens also? So he sends his emissary to ask the Jews of France and Europe, to the Jews individuals, everything, to the Jews as a people, nothing. You want as individuals become loyal Frenchmen? Pay your taxes, serve in the army, you'll get all the rights and responsibilities. You want to stay in a separate group of people with their own laws? Now, he even convenes a great Sanhedrin in 1807 to ask puts 100 rabbis in a room to ask them questions about Jewish loyalty. I've never seen rabbis talk so much and say so little to dance around the questions. I have the questions and the answers. It's fascinating. Can you be loyal? Can you intermarry? But it works. Napoleon buys the answers, which are very vague, and Jews are emancipated. And what do they run to do in Western Europe? What do they run to do now that they can be doctors, lawyers, and go to university and be accountants, and all the things they couldn't do for thousands of years? Like for 2,000 years, no Jewish woman can say, "My son's a doctor." And it often happens at the expense of what? Their Jewish identity, massive assimilation, intermarriage in places in Europe, taken off like crazy. It looked like what's happening. We found the reason. The Jews were different, and now that they're merging with us, because the more you become like the majority, the less you're hated until eventually what happens? You assimilate. If you'd asked, the word anti-Semitism, we'll get to it in a minute, it doesn't exist in 1850. But if you had asked a historian or sociologist, which also didn't exist in 1850, like, what's going to be with Jew hate in 1950? What would they have said? There's not going to be any Jew hate in 1950 because by then there's not going to be any Jews. But that's not how it works with us. We're unique. That the greatest explosions of anti-Semitism always take place in places where we're most different or most like non-Jews. Most like. You guys realize how supernatural and weird that is? That's a violation of like the laws of reality, basically. The only hint that that's what's going to be is the most famous trial in the 19th century, the Dreyfus Affair. You guys heard of the Dreyfus Affair? Yeah. Alfred Dreyfus, highest ranking Jew, there he is on the right, standing there at attention. Highest ranking Jew, captain in the French army from Alsace-Lorraine, 34-year-old, completely assimilated, loyal Frenchman. But France, seemingly enlightened, this is 100 years after Jews got civil rights. Seemingly enlightened, is deeply anti-Semitic. The government, the army. He's framed as being a German spy. He was completely innocent. He was found guilty. Tried 3 times and found guilty all 3 times and eventually pardoned. Here you can see him being publicly court-martialed in Paris. They're breaking his sword, ripping the buttons off his uniform, slapping him in the face with his gloves. They sent him to the French penal colony called Devil's Island off the coast of Brazil. Anyone seen the movie Papillon? In French Guiana. Yeah. Okay. What's the crowd screaming? Okay. Watching this trial is a 34-year-old Hungarian Jew living in Vienna, Austria. He's a playwright and a journalist. What's his name? Theodor Herzl. Completely enlightened, liberal, assimilated Jew. He's shocked because what's the crowd screaming as they're court-martialing Dreyfus? They're not screaming death to the death to the traitor. They're screaming "à mort à juif," which means what? Kill the Jews. And he writes in his diary, where is this happening? 100 years after the emancipation in France. For him, it's like an epiphany. The clouds open up. He sees the light clearly that we can change ourselves into any shape that they accuse us. I'm different, I become just like you. Does the anti-Semitism go away? No, it just changes its excuse and comes back in a different way. And therefore, like all early Zionist thinkers, he believed, he doesn't found the movement, but he joins and rises to the top. No human being is more responsible for the creation of a modern state of Israel than this guy. If we could have gotten him into yeshiva, he died quite young. He would have been a big Talmud Chacham, I think. But anyway, he didn't live long enough to come learn Nesha Torah. But all Zionists believe that the reason why we're hated is what? We're stateless people. We have no flag, no passport, no army, no place to go. They're always telling us, go home, go home, go home. Okay, but ironically, we fast forward, Herzl died in 1904 at the age of 44 of a heart attack. Fast forward to 2025, the number one excuse for hating Jews is what? Yeah. That we're home. Now they're saying you don't belong here, you're a foreign occupier, the indigenous Palestinians with your genocidal apartheid policies, get out of here. It's ridiculous. None of these are these are all from way before October 7th. Look at that. Like the Jewish star turned into Hitler, you were right. Are you kidding me? And I don't want to do a whole class on Israel's case for existing, but one thing we see about the notion of it's the occupation that's leading to the problems and triggering the anti-Semitism is first and foremost that even before there was a Jewish state, there's Azam Pasha, Secretary General of the Arab League, even before Israel was born, calling for the destruction of the Jewish state. We know that even before the state came into existence, Jews were being terrorized and attacked. We know that in 1947, the UN voted to partition Palestine, what was left of the Jewish state, the Jewish and Arab state. Had the Arabs accepted the partition like the Jews did, what would have been born along with Israel in 1948? Probably not Palestine. A lot of people call Palestinians were Jews before 1948. The PLO was founded, look this up guys, the Palestine Liberation Organization, the Palestine Identity, was founded in 1964 by Ahmed Sukhari through the Romanian secret police and Nicolae Ceausescu, who were sponsored by the KGB. It has nothing to do with anything from here. It's a great story that no one knows. Look it up. Anyway, they rejected it and tried to destroy us in 1948. Okay, and we ended up, look, they They ended up, Jordan took that West Bank, Judean Samaria, Egypt took Gaza. Would that they would take it back again, we'd happily give it to them. And then in 1967, they tried to destroy us again, and we got the territory in in 6 days. We beat 3 Arab armies. And the Prime Minister Levi Eshkol said, we'll give it all back to you. We'll give it to you, just make peace. What did the Arab world say? No peace, no recognition, no negotiation. Never been about creating a Palestinian state, nothing about occupation. All nonsense. It's always been about the Arab world's inability to accept the Jewish state, but the notion that we are the foreign occupiers is ridiculous. We are the indigenous population, the Arabs are the foreign occupiers. It's nonsense. But last but not least, we have the racial theory. And this is the one that Hitler used, claiming that Jews were inferior people, okay? That they have smaller brains. Look at those caricatures, German anti-Semitic artwork. Although the guy at the top in the middle on the left side looks just like Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, who's in the 20th year of his 4-year term, by the way. Unbelievable. Look at that device supposedly for measuring Jewish craniums. Ridiculous. First of all, there's no such thing as the Jewish race. We come in all size, shapes, and colors. It's complete nonsense, pseudoscience. Guys, we ran through that quickly, but it's all ridiculous. None of it has anything to do with reality. People may believe it, but it's simply not true. And none of it has anything to do with Judaism. There's nothing Jewish by hating Jews. It's their money, it's their race, it's their foreigners. What's the most famous diary from the Holocaust, guys? Anne Frank. Anne Frank was a German girl whose father fled to Holland because he had business interests there, thinking he'd be safe there. Ha ha ha. Hitler got to Holland pretty quick. And she ended up hiding in an attic for 2 years, and then someone ratted on them. We don't know until today who did that, but she dies in Bergen-Belsen of typhus a month before liberation. Only the father, Otto, survives, comes back to the house. Who's been to her house? Oh. You go to the basement, they have this human rights thing down there. It's all used to bash Israel. It's unbelievable how bad this is. You go to the basement, there's always like pro-Palestinian stuff down there. Anyway, it becomes the biggest selling diary about the Holocaust, 70 million copies, translated to over 100 languages. Anne Frank dies at 14. But at 12 years old, she's sitting in the attic. She didn't go to Beis Yaakov. She's not a well-educated Jewish girl, but she's very intelligent. Look what she writes, hiding in an attic at age 12, about why she's hiding in an attic at age 12. Who knows? It might even be a religion from which the world and all peoples learn good, and for that reason and that reason only do we now suffer. We can never become just Netherlanders, that's Dutch, or just English or representatives of any other country for that matter. We will always remain Jews. Wow. Anne Frank gets better than most university professors who take the Holocaust courses today. By the way, the Diary of Anne Frank was made into a Broadway show. You have to change the diary into dialogue. You think they're going to put this in a Broadway show? Some liberal Jewish playwright 50 years ago? Not a chance. You want to see how it appears in the Broadway show? Well, one day it's one group and the next day another. Yeah. Like Hitler sitting in Berlin in 1935 going, "Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and now it's time for the Juden to go." Like 6 million people, 1.5 million Jews are slaughtered by a nutcase. Guys, let's hit the pause button. And let's focus, first of all, that where the world might be full of racist, bigots, and intolerant people, anti-Semitism is different. As the late, great Princeton University professor Dr. Bernard Lewis said, hatred of Jews has many parallels and yet is unique in its persistence and its extent, its potency and its virulence, its terrible final solution. Conventional prejudice and persecution can be very terrible, but they differ from anti-Semitism as conventional from nuclear war. There's something different about it. Beginning with the word anti-Semitism, which means what, by the way? Which shouldn't be hyphenated. This is the correct way it should be spelled and how it was first spelled. An anti-Semite is someone who, Rav Noach Weinberg, the founder of Aish Torah, said you can't use a word unless you can define it. Back in the day when I could debate Palestinians on university, now you just cancel you and try and kill you. But I used to have Arabs stand up and go, "You are the anti-Semite. You are Jewish. You are religion. You are from Poland. You are not a nation. You hate me. I am Arab. I am Semitic person. You are the anti-Semite." And I said, "Sorry, Ahmed, that's not the way it works. The word was created by a German Jew hater who was one of the inspirations for Hitler. His name was Wilhelm Marr. He wrote a book in 1879 called The Victory of Germandom Over Judaism. This is in the age of enlightenment and science. He wanted to make hatred of Jews sound more scientific, racial, and academic, so he creates this phrase, anti-Semitism, in every dictionary in the world. That is what it means. Memorize that. Prejudice or hostility towards Jews, and Jews alone. If you hate an Arab, you're not an anti-Semite. And for over a century, it was the only form of racial or religious intolerance that had its own word to describe it. What do I mean? If you hate a black person, what are you? If you hate an Asian, what are you? Hate a Christian, what are you? There's no word for it. Only Jew hate has to have like its own word. That should get us thinking that there's something weird about it. And there's other aspects of anti-Semitism that make it different from other hatred. Number one is the longevity, as Edward Flannery says, the Catholic priest who wrote this book. You know, the Thames Television in England, when they did a whole series in the history of anti-Semitism, was called Anti-Semitism, the Longest Hatred. It's the oldest continuously recorded hatred in human history. I can show it to you all the way back in Sefer Bereshit. That's one thing that sets it apart. Number two that sets it apart is the universality, which doesn't mean everyone in the world hates Jews. But unlike other hatreds, hatred of us is not linked to our relationship with one nation, one race, one religion, one people. Wherever we have gone in any significant numbers, anti-Semitism is followed. That's what that Tom Lear song we saw. This group hates that group, but everyone hates us. The third thing that sets it apart is the intensity. It's not just prejudice or hostility. You know, up until the middle of the 20th century in America, there's a lot of open anti-Semitism. We couldn't get into this country club, this university, this hospital. That's low-level stuff. You know, Henry Ford, who didn't always have good ideas, on his parking lot, he had a sign, no Jews or dogs allowed. Rabid anti-Semite in Deer Point, Michigan. Where's the largest Muslim community in the world now? Dearborn, Michigan, excuse me. It's like the tumor that he implanted attracted. It's like something the dogs leave behind that attracts flies. I'm telling you. It's unbelievable. They happen to be in that exact place. And the anti-Semitism that pours out of there is incredible. This is being recorded. I'm in trouble now. Anyway, okay. It's much worse than that. It's an unendingly long list of persecution, expulsion, economic and physical marginalization, ghettoization, rape, pillage, beating. Up to what's the worst thing you can do to people you hate?
Genocide.
Kill them. Genocide. Killing them. Who invented the word genocide? Sounds like an ancient word. Genos is the Greek word for people. Side, like insecticide, deicide, is to kill. Not an ancient word. It was invented by Dr. Raphael Lemkin, Lemkin, who is a Polish Jewish jurist. He's the father of the concept of crimes against humanity in international law. He was in the Holocaust. He was first inspired by what the Turks did to the Armenians in 1950. But fleeing from Europe to England in 1944, he writes, there's a crime happening in Europe, there's no word to describe it, he creates that word genocide. Even that word has to be created to describe the unique intensity of anti-Semitism, which has now been completely gutted of its meaning because of the overuse of the word apartheid and genocide by the anti-Israel people in the world. We stink at genocide, Israel. The Palestinian population's gone up like 400%. We are so bad at that. The whole thing's ridiculous. They really ruined the whole meaning of the word, unfortunately. And last but not least that sets anti-Semitism apart is the confusion. Think about it. You ask a white suprematist to put on a whiteboard, or they wouldn't use a blackboard, why they don't like black people. They'll write 5 or 6 horrible things black people supposedly do. But you ask Jew haters why they hate Jews, this is the wrong image, there's more of them. The list will go, they'll fill out 15 whiteboards. We hate Jews because they're capitalist, communist, warlike, passive, different, the same, strong, weak, rich, poor, dominant, lazy, servile, aggressive. What's weird about the list, guys? Exactly.
Oxymoron.
Yeah. Sorry?
Oxymoron.
Well, no, they contradict each other. Yeah, anything and everything is a reason to hate the Jews. That's what Michael Curtis, Professor Emeritus at Rutgers, said. Whatever you hate, that's what a Jew is. Okay. Let me just see something. Let's see if I have. No. Okay. Hold on a second, guys. I think I got the wrong present. I want to give you. This is missing some images. Hang in there a second. I want to open a different presentation. This is missing some of the quotes. 1 second. There it is. Here it is. Okay, 1 sec. No. Go along. We're getting there. Hold on.
Can I ask, is the circle like the origin of the Jewish slur?
I'm sorry?
Is the circle that the Jewish slur, is that the origin of like
I don't know. What's the kind? What's it?
I think I heard the origin from Keikel.
Oh, that's interesting. Never heard that. Thank you. Check this. That's interesting. That's interesting. Never heard that one. Anyway, could be. That's a better image there. You can see. But guys, there's other. I didn't just pull it up for that one. Okay, so we're left with this. Like, what's driving this anti-Semitism? We see it's different. So let's switch gears for the few minutes we have left. This is when it's going to get super interesting, guys. Pay attention now. Now let's try to understand what Judaism says is the cause, and we're not going to look at it by looking in the Talmud and Jewish sources and the Midrashim. We're going to do it by looking at through the eyes and the words of the greatest modern anti-Semite in history. Who is that? Sorry? No, not even close. He's bipolar in a sad case. Adolf Hitler himself. Adolf Hitler. Okay, now let's give it a second. Let's go right over here. Boo, exactly. Okay, now we make two mistakes with Hitler, by the way. Number one is people call him crazy. I'm a historian. I know, to do great good or great evil in this world, you have to have great potential. Hitler's a man of tremendous potential. He just uses it in the most evil way possible. That's number one. The other thing is, I've heard people say he's a joker. I can show you German journalists in the mid-1920s when Hitler comes on the political stage saying the guy's a clown. Who should you take more seriously, democratically elected leader or a totalitarian?
Democratic.
No. Totalitarian. Democratic one will change his tune if he thinks that's what will sell. No, we can't. Yes, we can. A totalitarian, does he care what you think? No. If you disagree with him, what will he do? He will end you. He'll prison you or kill you. Hitler is incredibly consistent ideological. When he first starts writing his famous autobiography called Mein Kampf in the mid-1920s to the moment before he puts a bullet in the bunker in his bunker in Berlin 20 years later in April 1945. The quotes I'm going to show you are not from Mein Kampf. They're from 3 books. Hitler Speaks, Hitler's Table Talk, and Hitler's Apocalypse. A lot of them are recordings of the conversations recorded by Martin Bormann, Hitler's personal secretary, when he's talking to the inner circle of people he can really tell you. He says the quiet part out loud. Not the propaganda for the masses. These quotes are blowaway, guys. Pay attention. He says, the struggle for world domination we fought entirely between us, between Germans and Jews. All else is facade and illusion. Behind England stands Israel, behind France and behind the United States. Even when we have driven the Jew out of Germany, he remains our world enemy. Now, Hitler does not believe that the governments of these countries are Jewish-run governments. The Japanese thought that, by the way. Roosevelt was Rosenfeld. They believe that that's whatever, but not the Germans. But he knows until he declares war on the Soviet Union and invades in the summer of 1941, every country he's fighting with has what form of government? Liberal democracy. On an ideological level, it's totalitarianism versus liberal democracy. And by the way, he's not just saying this. This is why he's so consistent. In 1944, Hitler's losing the war. Stalingrad broke the German army when he invades the Soviet Union, and now the Soviet army is pushing him back. He has a choice. Send troops on trains to stop the advancing massive Soviet army, or send 500,000 Hungarian Jews, the last large Jewish population left in Europe, to die in Auschwitz in the fall of 1944. What does he choose to do? Gas 400,000 Hungarian Jews. What would you call that militarily? Suicide. What would you call it ideologically? If your greatest enemy is the Jew, what's he being?
Consistent.
Totally consistent. He goes on to say, do you now appreciate the depth of our National Socialist movement? That's what Nazism stands for. Can there be anything greater and more all-comprehending? Those who see in National Socialism nothing more than a political movement, know scarcely anything of it. It is more even than a religion. It is the will to create mankind anew. It's the toxic merger of left-wing thinking with right-wing thinking in the back. The horseshoe theory is what you get out of Adolf Hitler. But look what he says. Nazism is not just a political party. It is a hashkafa, like a worldview. He goes on to say, they refer to me as an educated barbarian. Yes, we are barbarians. We want to be barbarians. It is an honorable title to us. We shall rejuvenate this world. This world is near its end. Does Hitler view himself as a bad guy or a good guy? Good guy. Guys, this is one of the worst things that Hollywood does, besides romantic comedies where the guy meets the girl and it's an intense relationship, and 20 minutes before the end there's always a crisis, usually the guy's fault, and the movie always ends at or before what event? The wedding, because then after the wedding they lived happily ever after. Anyone married knows the real work begins after you say I do. Everyone's on their best behavior before. As my father told me many years ago after I got married, he goes, now that you're married, I'll give you the definition of marriage. It's a really long meal with dessert first. Married guys laugh. Everyone else is like, that's so cynical. Anyway, how do we get onto this topic? No, but the other thing that Hollywood does tremendous disservice to is evil. Because evil in Hollywood is what color? Voldemort, Saruman, Darth Vader. It's black. And their enemies are black. And it wants to do evil. Even Bullwinkle, the cartoon with Boris Badenov was his name. and his society to do evil. My friends, evil always thinks it's doing good. Good people say, I'm trying to do good. Evil, sure. Hitler views himself as in a messianic way. Look what he says now. Providence has ordained that I should be the greatest liberator of humanity. I am freeing man from the restraints of an intelligence that has taken charge, from a dirty and degrading self-mortification of a false vision called conscience and morality, and from the demands of a freedom and a personal independence which only a very few can bear. To the free spirit of humanity is being crushed by this false vision, this burden. I will lift it off of you and you will be free. Look at the next quote, is mind-blowing. The Ten Commandments have lost their validity. Conscience is a Jewish invention. It is a blemish like circumcision. That is the single greatest backhanded compliment ever given to the Jewish people. What's a backhanded compliment? You're trying to insult someone, what do you say? Yeah. And by the way, we're getting next class, the grand finale is Hanukkah and the Greeks. I'm kind of ruining a little bit of a spoiler alert. But Hanukkah was, as we'll see, it's paganism's war against Judaism. What are the Greeks for outlaw in Hanukkah? They put you to death for circumcising your kids. Keep this in mind. A little bit. I just spoiled a little bit of the next class, but it's going to be really good anyway. I promise you. But this paganism's war against Judaism. Now, here's the next two quotes you're going to see are the two single greatest quotes about what really drives Hitler's mind. These are not quotes from Hitler. Hitler ran a youth organization, the Nazis, called the Hitler Youth. Now, these songs were originally sung in German, but this is saying the quiet part out loud. No one quotes these. This is not in Yad Vashem anywhere. This should be on the front of Yad Vashem as you enter this. The words of these songs. Look at this as a blowaway. We are the joyous Hitler Youth. We don't need any Christian virtue. Our leader is our savior. The Pope and Rabbi shall be gone. We want to be pagans once again. You got that, guys? By the way, Hitler hated the church. He just didn't live long enough to finish it off. He would have gone after the next. Look, the next one is even better. This one is blower. Here's another Hitler Youth song. Look at this one. Jews out, away with the Pope. No, we have not bled anonymously and without fame. So the German race will be Judaized through Christianity. We are free from the mountain of Sinai. You leave us alone. Wow, wow, wow. This is unbelievable. We're free from the mountain of Sinai? Oh my God. He goes on to say, I'm not even read the quote, but he says, nature is brutal, but nature is balanced. You ever watch an Animal Channel show? Like when the lions hunt the wildebeest herd that is migrating in Tanzania. Who do they go after? The alpha male of the leading male of the herd? The one that's 1,800 pounds with 6-foot wide horns? No way, they don't touch that one. Who do they go after? The babies, the sick, the weak. You hear about a criminal going after an old lady or a baby. What do you think? Psycho evil. You hear about the lion dude. What do you think? That's what happens. Nature is brutal, but nature is balanced. The herd stays strong, the lion stays strong. There's no mercy. That's how it used to be in the ancient world. We just saw in World Perfect. What happened to a baby with even a minor birth defect in the ancient world? We're talking about like cleft palate. Kill it. Leave it on a rock to be eaten by a wild animal. Okay? But now, Hitler said, because these ideas have come into the world that have, it's like a safari park. Take a lion, raise it in a safari park. You throw it a steak every day. Take that lion, drop it back in Africa. What's going to happen to it? It's going to become another lion's lunch in about 5 minutes. He said in the ancient world, they used to kill babies with minor handicaps. Defective people were weeded out. Today, they're allowed to walk around. By the way, Hitler learned all this from progressive thinkers in the United States. Go read about the eugenics movement. Go read about Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who is a racist, who basically founded Planned Parenthood to get black people to stop having babies. That's unbelievable. You guys know, you ever heard about this story? You got to read, it's unbelievable. This stuff was started by progressive thinkers in America. In California, in the early 20th century, they forcibly sterilized thousands of mentally handicapped people. That information was then sent to Germany. Hitler took it to the next step. He started first by gassing his own handicapped people. The Germans didn't like that. Go read about the Tiergarten 4 project. And it had to be done secretly afterwards. But then he was just practicing for, of course, going after the Jews, who he viewed as the most dangerous of all. But this is crazy, dangerous stuff. So he said, nature is brutal, but nature is balanced. The world has been what used to be the natural concept of survival of the fittest, be it animals or be it empires. like the Romans didn't respect borders, they destroyed the weaker nations, has now been replaced by what's called the human concept. And the weak and the sick are allowed to survive and spread, and they're destroying the natural order, they're destroying the world. Who is responsible for this? He says, the Jews. And he says, even if only one country for whatever reason tolerates a Jewish family, that family become the germ center. He calls Jews super spreaders. Basilicus, the Belzenhard, for fresh sedition. If one little Jewish boy survives at any Jewish education with no synagogue and no Hebrew school, it's in his soul. Whoa. Even if there had never been a synagogue or a Jewish school in the Old Testament, the Jewish spirit would still exist and exert its influence. It has been there from the very beginning, and there is no Jew, not a single one, who does not personify it. Not even all these Jews who don't even know we're Jewish in there, but really are, like Jake Gyllenhaal and all these people running around with different non-Jewish sounding names. Notice one thing about anti-Semites, they don't care what kind of Jew you are.
Yeah.
Religious, secular, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, they don't care. They see, Hitler sees it's the Jewish spirit. It has nothing to do with Jewish education. He comes to a logical conclusion. Every single Jew has to die. It's like during COVID. Remember you let one guy infected into an auditorium with 5,000 people, what's going to happen? Super spreader. He goes on to say, the worst thing that ever happened to humanity was Christianity. He hated it. Bolshevism, which is communism, is Christianity's illegitimate child. Both are inventions of the Jew. And he's correct, by the way. Christianity is a theological, historical offshoot of Judaism. They took the Bible right out of us and included in theirs. And communism is completely by Jews who were driven to fix the world but left God behind, so they tried to create a form of government that's going to do God's job and fix everything. Okay, but he said to get rid of communists and Christians, you don't have to kill all the people. You kill the priests, burn down the church, kill the commissars, kill Stalin, all those people will go back to becoming what? Pagans. But to get rid of the mother of the bastard religions, you call them, you can't just burn down the synagogues and kill rabbis. Every Jew is a super spreader. Every single Jew has to die. What's weird about that, guys, is what the rabbis in the Talmud say. They say, because where did we become a nation, guys? Where did we become a nation? At Mount Sinai. Everyone else becomes a nation by, like, how did the French become French? A bunch of people move into a piece of real estate to develop a common culture. We like the red wines and the white cheese with the blue, and we raise the flag, and we surrender, and we become French, you know? But there we go again with the French jokes. We become a nation outside our national homeland. We pledge allegiance not to a piece of real estate, but to what? A national historic mission to be the God Squad, to bring God-based values into the world. That takes place at a place called Mount Sinai, somewhere in the desert, I don't even know where. The rabbis say, don't read it as Sinai, read it as Sin'ah. At Mount Sinai, hatred was born. It is hatred of the messenger because of the message that he or she carries within his Jewish soul. Whether he or she even realizes it or not, which is why Hitler doesn't even care what kind of Jew you are. So it says, this is Rauschning, who was a Nazi, became an anti-Nazi. He sees exactly this. He fled to the United States. He says, look what he says at the bottom. He says, the eternal call to Sinai against which humanity again and again rebels. He says what ultimately is driving, Hitler says the quiet part out loud, is a pushback against what we saw in the first presentation of this idea of bringing God consciousness and God-based morality and spirituality into the world. You ever heard the expression, they won the battle but lost the war? We lost the wars with the exception of Hanukkah, which was a very long drawn-out conflict we'll learn about in a few minutes. But we actually won the battle. We lost our country. Most of us did not make it to modernity. For everyone who's around as a Jew, who knows how many Jews perished or assimilated out? 2,000 years we were in exile and persecuted. Yet what happened? We managed to, despite being the most hated people on the planet, transform humanity's values, like we saw in the last presentation. Like T.R. Glover, the historian, says, mankind, East and West, Christian and Muslim, accepted the Jewish convictions, only one God. Today it is polytheism that is so difficult to understand, that is so unthinkable. We saw the John Adams quote already about the Jews being the most civilizing force in the world. We saw the Paul Johnson quote about the basic wall furniture of the human mind. Guys, Hitler reading these quotes, would he agree or disagree with them? He would totally agree with them. What's the difference between Paul Johnson and John Adams and a lot of other people and a guy like Hitler? They all see the historically proven power of the Jewish people and Jewish ideas to directly or indirectly transform the world. What's the difference between them? Their reaction to it. John Adams and Paul Johnson bought into it. They think it's the best thing that ever happened. Adolf Hitler says it's the worst thing. Guys, Adolf Hitler is not evil because of his understanding of the Jewish people. Adolf Hitler understands who we are better than most Jews understand who we are. He's evil because of his reaction to the understanding. Because I see the power of the Jew, and that's what I hate. Now, up until recently, the best book written about anti-Semitism was this book by Dennis Prager and Joseph Telushkin, Why the Jews. My brother-in-law, I'm not saying that, but Rabbi Raphael Shor, former Aish guy, wrote a book, Run, Don't Walk, and get a copy of this book. It's called Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Jew? It has all these quotes and much more, an unbelievably good book, very up to date on everything happening since October 7th. Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Jew? But this is a great book too. These are the two best books that say it out loud, exactly what drives it. Look what Prager and Telushkin say in the end of their book. From its earliest days, the raison d'etre of Judaism has been to change the world for the better. This attempt to challenge the world, to change the world, to challenge the gods, religious or secular, of societies around them, and to make moral demands upon others, has constantly been a source of tension between Jews and non-Jews. We now understand why so many non-Jews have regarded the mere existence of Jews, no matter how few, as terribly threatening. The mere existence of Jews, with their different values and allegiances, constitute a threat to the prevailing order. Guys, in summary, what's driving anti-Semitism, all excuses behind, is we have been dragging, we're the mirror in humanity's face, always reflecting back on them what they're doing wrong, which is why see what they accuse us of and you'll know exactly what they're guilty of. What did Hitler accuse the Jews of trying to do?
Bring God consciousness of the world.
Take over the world. What is he trying to do? Take over the world. You know, the Jews trying to take, he doesn't say, oh, that part doesn't say to the masses. They're just trying to rule the world. What is Hamas saying about us? The Jews are committing genocide. What's in their charter to do against the Jews? They're the genocidal maniacs. We are the mirror. We've been dragging the world, often kicking and screaming towards a vision of values based on one God, one absolute standard of morality, and anti-Semitism, regardless of whatever excuse it hides behind, is a lie and a smokescreen on the deepest level that most people who hate us aren't even aware of. They buy into the nonsense. But on the deepest level, it's always a rebellion against that mission. Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, had a great line. He said, a human being can survive anyhow as long as he has a proper why. And people will go through tremendous pain and even die if they believe that what they're suffering or dying for is meaningful. If you're sitting in this room today Jewish, it's because we had ancestors for thousands of years who were expelled and persecuted and marginalized and abused and taxed, and some of them killed, and the last thing out of their mouth was Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. You know, I'm not going to be complacent about what's going on. We are in tremendous danger in the world. Anti-Semitism is exploding. But one thing I know is long after the people who try and kill us are gone, we will still be here. This point is so important. I made a t-shirt about it, by the way. I forgot to bring the shirt, but here's what it is. I made this in 2007, this shirt. It says, civilizations, nations, and empires have tried to destroy the Jewish people and their status today. Ancient Egypt, gone. Philistines, gone. Assyrian, Babylonian, Persian, Greek, Roman, Byzantine empires, gone, 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 gone. Crusaders, gone. Spanish Empire, gone. Nazi Germany, gone. Soviet Union, gone. It ran with 3 question marks. And it says, the Jewish people, the smallest of nations, with a friend in the highest of places, so be nice. What do you think? One for every member of the UN and 2 shirts for the president of Iran? By the way, most Jews are afraid to wear this shirt. Like, I can't wear it, don't kill me. I said, who, a Babylonian? He's gone. Just don't wear it in Tehran, you're fine. You know, buys and wears all these shirts, like 90, you can get it online, go to my website. There's a company that makes them, yeah, good for you, should have worn it, you get 10 bonus points. Who buys and wears most of these shirts besides, what's your name? Jacob, who buys? Evangelical Christians, because they take the Bible very seriously, and they're always writing me on social media, Rabbi Spiro will live in Yazoo, Mississippi, I wear your t-shirt in my church because God loves the Jewish people. They see the survival of the Jewish people, the rebirth of Israel, supernatural. So, am I concerned? Yes. Do we have to have a strong army and defend and be unified? Yes, yes, yes. But what I'm more afraid of is what's going on today. You see, since October 7th, is taking a Jew who is ignorant, who has no Jewish understanding, and exposing them to anti-Semitism. And what is the decision they might decide to make?
Assimilate.
Let's end with one final mushal here, guys. Take a brief break. Imagine years from now, you are quiet. You're married, and you have a beautiful, cute, redheaded little girl, and she goes off to preschool the first day, and she comes home crying, Mommy, Daddy, they all made fun of me. They called me Carrot Top and Rudolph the Red-Headed Reindeer. This is PET, Parent Effectiveness Training. What are you going to say to your daughter?
Suck it up.
That's why the mother talks to the kids. Okay, you're going to say, you're beautiful, you're special, they're jealous, you got a great future as a stop sign. What's the one thing you're not going to tell your kid to do? Dye your hair. Like I said before, totally counterintuitive and illogically the greatest explosions of anti-Semitism. Whether we're talking about Egypt going back 3,300 years ago, or in Spain, or in Germany before the Holocaust, have taken place in places where Jews are what? Most like the non-Jews. The biggest explosions come out of there. But it means to opt out, it doesn't solve the problem on any level. It means you break the chain. Not you guys are all connected, but other people that can opt out. I know my cousin's family, my uncle, half of them are French. After the war, they deliberately married non-Jews and raised all their children as Catholics, thinking that would help them. What a double tragedy. You know who summed it up the best, guys? I don't know about you, but the best wisdom in my house is on the refrigerator, all the great quotes. This is the quote you want to remember, and here's what you got to take with you. Rav Chaim of Volozhin, he said it the best. When Jews don't make Kiddush, Gentiles make Havdalah. He doesn't mean literally, well, they're both made with wine. When we don't Kiddush, Friday night, elevate the world through the values that come from God, Havdalah, Saturday night, you go down to the lower level, the world, remember Aristotle said, nature abhors a vacuum. And nature abhors a spiritual moral vacuum. The world will either be full of the values that come from God, that is our job to bring into the world by being a role model, or they will be filled with the opposite values. The opposite values are what's called evil. And when evil comes into the world, who will it target first? Us. You can literally tell how countries are doing by how they treat Jews. It starts with us and spreads to everyone else. Like we're the canary in the coal mine. You never heard that expression? Miners used to bring a little canary in. We get it first, then it spreads. The evil spreads. George Gilder wrote a great book years ago called The Israel Test. He said, show me what a country thinks of Israel. I'll tell you all about their morality and their values and their government. You think it's an accident that North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, Cuba hate Israel? Evil will target us first. So sure, we got to tell the world, that these things are not true. I'm not going to believe it. But bottom line, what's the only solution to anti-Semitism? Well, first of all, we got to instill in our fellow Jews, not why the Jews, but why be Jewish. Bring on the anti-Semites. When we are a proud people, understand what our mission is, and we are unified, we're an unstoppable force. But if what really drives all of anti-Semitism is pushback against the national historic mission of the Jewish people, guys, what's the only solution?
Ahavas Yisrael.
Ahavas Yisrael is a step towards that. But it's the unity we need. But it's Jewish people for Jewish values make the best role models for humanity. It's to come together and to remember the purpose of being Jewish. It's not, by the way, to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. Without that, there is no Jewish people. That is the software that keeps us going. There's nothing. That's the means to the ends. It's to take us, the hardware, collectively, take that Torah software and the values, put it in, and remember that our job is to not try and keep everything out and stay away from everyone. And that doesn't work, guys. That's just opening up the world to all the poison that will fill and then come after us en masse. Doesn't mean you have to go out and start converting Christians to Judaism. It's not our job either. We don't do that. We make it hard to convert. We have no empires. The only Jewish empire in history has been Hollywood. But we have to start out by remembering that when you identify as a Jew, you are a role model. We have to first do no harm, no chil Hashem, God forbid, and proactively look for ways to first and foremost inspire our fellow Jews to connect Jewishly and then to collectively inspire the world. The world will not leave us alone until we do that. I know it sounds like the impossible dream, but if you're sitting in this room, guys, 3,339 years since Mount Sinai, a couple hundred yards away from what is the holiest spot in the world where the temple will be standing again soon in our days, having outlived the greatest empires that tried to destroy us. It's all supernatural. We just can't. The finish line is in sight. We got to be unified and proactive. We should merit to see that soon and in our days.